Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to day 58 of the Free to Hope presentation of how to apply the 12 steps to COVID-19 morning recovery conversation with Edwina B. That's me, y'all. And this is a happy new day. I know it's a new year, a new month, but in a 12-step program, we recognize that every day is a holiday, every day is a new day, and therefore we should be grateful. Why? Because our Creator breathed life into you this morning, breathed life into me this morning, woke you up, woke me up. It wasn't the alarm clock. It wasn't our children. It wasn't our grands. It wasn't even our spouse, if you have one. It was the Creator alone that chose you to rise. Our Creator chooses broken and wounded and shattered people like you and like me to rescue wounded, shattered, and broken people like you and like me. That's why we were chosen to breathe today, to be able to smell today, this moment, to be able to taste this moment, this minute, this hour, this happy new day. And therefore, we should give acknowledgement to our Creator for waking us up this morning and breathing life into us. There are, as you know, so many of us who have transitioned from COVID-19. There are so many of us who are suffering at this moment from COVID-19. There are some who are going to die as a result of COVID-19. That's why these spiritual principles outlined and customized by the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous over 80 plus years ago can be applied to decreasing the perpetuation or stop the perpetuation of COVID-19 and its devastating impact, outcome, effect, and fatalities. So therefore, we need to give homage to our Creator because He and only He knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of this COVID-19 pandemic. It is not the first pandemic that our human race have experienced, and it won't be the last. But before we go on, we need to recognize there is a solution. There is an answer, how you and I and we collectively can combat COVID-19 by applying these 12 simple steps that are spiritual in nature to give us the psychic change to practice those suggestions given by the CDC, our statistics, our data, our researchers, so that we can save one life, one family, one culture, one community, one city, one state, one country. And if we all do this simultaneously, boy, can we decrease the effects of COVID-19. But we want to give homage to our Creator, to those of the human race, which includes all of us, who are being affected, impacted, one way, shape, form, or fashion with COVID-19. And in support of that, we want to do a 30-second moment of silence for them, for us, for you, the entire human race. And with that, I'm going to put on my mask. Join me as we give 30 seconds of silence. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Giving that homage as we do in a 12-step program demonstrates that we care. We empathize. We have compassion. We want to understand. We want to show unity because we are all in this together. And we have to do it for those who are unable to do it, those who resist doing it, and those who just don't care to do it. But guess what? We are our brothers, sisters, keepers. And therefore, we have to act on behalf of our human race, starting with ourselves, our loved ones, our culture. And so for the past 30 plus years, I have been practicing these spiritual principles in all my affairs and have now been prepared to sit before you on day 58 of my journey of contracting and surviving COVID-19 and applying these 12 spiritual principles now and with you, so that you and I together can save the lives of ourselves and the lives of our loved ones. I have shared with you that 8 members of my family contracted COVID-19, survived COVID-19, and it is my obligation, my honor, my duty, my responsibility to share that same information with you of our experience, our strength, our hope, our wisdom, our lack of wisdom, our decisions, our choices, both bad and now good, as demonstrated in my banner, wearing the mask, washing our hands, social distancing, not going out if we don't have to, avoiding public places, not going to family gathering in support of what? So if you are like me, who was at one time defiant, rebellious, took this COVID-19 for granted, had that feeling of being invincible, it won't happen to me, it won't happen to my family, prideful, egotistical, self-centered, selfish. But thank God I can breathe, I can smell, I can taste, I can touch, I can see, I can hear, but I am listening. And that's the difference. We hear things, but we need to practice listening. So with that, I want to thank my God. And you can, if you have a problem with God, call him a higher power, call him the creator. Listen, just know that that power that's greater than you and I, that woke us up this morning, that breathed life into you and to me, and who will decide to breathe life into other human beings. Yes, I give him homage. He delivered me from drugs and alcohol over 30 plus years ago, and he delivered me from COVID-19 just for today. And we talk about and ask you the question, are you in the prevention mode of COVID-19, the intervention mode of COVID-19, or the restoration mode of COVID-19? Are you being proactive regarding COVID-19? Are you being inactive with COVID-19? Are you being reactive with COVID-19? Or are you now being responsible and respecting COVID-19? And there is a solution. And so we're going to continue our conversation regarding applying the 12 steps to COVID-19 and how you and I can be an attraction to others. You and I can plant seeds, beginning with our families, our loved ones, our culture, Because if you would have saw me 58 days ago, I was suffering. I was sickly. And I sat before you just the way I was because my God wanted to show you what COVID-19 looks like. Yes, I had I didn't have my dentures in. I was weak. My taste buds were dull. My smelling capacity was limited. And most importantly, I could not take a deep breath like this. No, I could not. And therefore, what you see now, as a result of taking off all those other masks that don't mean anything, the mask of image, the mask of this, the mask of that we've been wearing all our lives, and putting on the mask that will save our lives. And so what you see now represents my culture. My makeup is to give homage to my heritage and to my tradition. But the mask that will save my life is this one. The mask that will save your life is this one. So listen, you can hear me. I know you can hear me. By not taking the simple suggestions that were given to all of us, some of us fail to implement them and use them, and as a result, had various outcomes. But no more, because we want to present to you how we collectively and individually can stop the perpetuation of COVID-19. So what I want to do is to show you a PowerPoint that I started as a result of me being in recovery 30 plus years. But in February of 2020, on February the 23rd, we celebrated 30 years in recovery. The God of my understanding prepared me to go on a world tour to present to the human race the benefits of the 12 steps and how they have worked in my life and millions of others. Going around the world, sharing my experience, my strength, my hope, and my wisdom, how these 12 spiritual principles can help you too. Because they say in our 12-step program, all human beings are ill to some extent, and all human beings can benefit from the wisdom of the 12-step program. However, in February of 2020, we began to hear things about this COVID-19, and like anything else, it was out there. It was information. And I had began on my anniversary doing my first presentation, my first engagement in presenting through my experience, strength, and hope, the 12 recovery principles from my point of view, from my perspective, utilizing the resources that are available even to you. I had scheduled time for the next following week. I had scheduled presentations in 7 cities around the country, and I had outlined where I was going to go throughout the end of the year. Then COVID-19 came into play. And as a result, I no longer went on tour after just doing 3 presentations. And I wondered what happened? How can I continue to share this information? See, God prepares us for what he wants us to do. And even COVID-19 didn't stop God from using me to share the importance, the wisdom, and the benefits of 12 spiritual principles. Why do I say that? because in March or on March the 31st of 2020, my dear friend from my home group, Stephanie J., sent me an article by Dr. Scott T. Allison. I've been calling him James T. Allison, but his name is Dr. Scott T. Allison. And the caption read, "How we can use the wisdom of the 12-step programs during the month of April, when we had that first lockdown, if you will." And as a result of that article, God said, guess what? You're going to continue your Free to Hope tour. Free stands for from recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. And so what I want to share with you is the information that I started. Well, I did share a couple of times, but I want you to see the seed that was planted in February of 2020 that we are now utilizing here in a new year and a new month, but particularly a new day, a new happy day. So what I want to do first is to give you an update, not an update, but demonstrate to you or show you what the 12 spiritual principles are before I do my PowerPoint presentation that I started last year. And so what I want to do now is share with you again what that information is that can help you and many of us in this process called recovery to benefit from the 12 spiritual principles. Now, what I want to be able to do, for some reason, let me cancel this and give me a minute, y'all, because listen, I like to be not in control. I just like to make sure that I'm presenting the correct information the way it should be presented. And therefore, I want to show what I am talking about as I am speaking. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, as I am listing this information, I also want you to be able to apply this information as you're seeing it on the screen and as I am trying to get it on so I can demonstrate with you what I'm talking about. So let's see what we have here. Y'all bear with me. Okay, let's see. All right, so it looks like I'm having a little bit of difficulty, but that's not going to stop me. All right, so the 12 spiritual principles that we are going to use as a guide to apply to COVID-19 are the 12 steps that were customized by Alcoholics Anonymous over 80 plus years ago. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Nope. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And when we replace that with COVID-19, we will say we are powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. All right. And so I want to pause because I want to make sure I am giving y'all the right information, which I know I am. But I don't like technical challenges. So I'm just going to do what I normally do. And I'm going to bring up the information that I want to be able to share. All right. And so that I can present to you what I am talking about so that you can follow along with me. All right. So here we go. I think I got it now. I think so. I want to do this. Okay, here we go. See, I love it. All right. Okay, so let's go here. Let's hit present. Okay. And let's go back here. And I'm going to bring it up. See what happens when we take our time. All right. So what I want to say is recovery principle number 1. See what happens when you practice patience. We admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity regarding COVID-19. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as regarding COVID-19. 4, made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves regarding COVID-19. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs regarding COVID-19. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character regarding COVID-19. Let me go and get the other information. Hold on one second, and I will present the remaining ones to you, okay, so that we can make sure that we are in collaboration and we're doing everything that we need to be doing. All right, so let's do that. Let's bring it down to here, and let's bring it up here. Let's see. Here we go. I love it when things work. 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings regarding COVID-19. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed, willing, and became willing to make amends to them all regarding COVID-19. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible regarding COVID-19. And I should make this, more fuller. So let me do that so y'all can actually see it, all right? 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others regarding COVID-19. 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it regarding COVID-19. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry it out regarding COVID-19. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others regarding COVID-19 and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I want to share with you the resources that are important for you to go and extract yourself so that you can do your own homework. You can do it in the comfort of your home so that you too can benefit from the wisdom of the 12-step program that Dr. Scott T. Allison mentioned in Psychology Today in the March 2020 edition. So now I want to present to you what I was going to, what I was doing back in February of 2020, and the God of my understanding allowed me and will allow me to share this information with you as well. And so what I want to be able to do is to go here, get out of here, and hold on, y'all. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. Here we go. And I'm going to open that up. And I am teaching myself how to do these PowerPoints and how to include all of this information that I want to be able to share with you. And so I'm going to do that by sharing with you what I started back in February of 2020. All right. So let me do this, go here and share screen. All righty. So here, okay, share. And here we go. All right. So this was my flyer that I used back in February of 2020. So you see, I have my flyer and it talks about how the 1212 Corporation sponsored me in presenting my launch of the Free to Hope. At that time, it was just free from recovery, emerge, empowered, presenting the 12 recovery principles. And the 12 recovery principles are in the middle of the circle as I demonstrated and shared my challenges of having cancer, being raped, domestic violence, my suicide attempts, my mental illness, and how the 12 recovery principles I apply to all of those areas and have been successful one day at a time in overcoming those adversities. As you can see on the column, I had listed several locations and dates where I was going across the country to share my experience, my strength, and my hope. Down the bottom here, you see me in a picture with my book as it was written, which is my journal that I wrote and kept for the first 4 years of my recovery, that I use now as a reference point, right? And so I want to also be able to share with you not just that, but how I wanted also to share the information about my PowerPoint. So this was my PowerPoint that I started, and I kind of updated for now because of the new information. So my first presentation back then that I edited says 12 recovery principles, free to hope. From recovery, emerge empowered to help others prosper equally. Presented by me, Edwina B, doctoral candidate. I had 31 years up there, but I will have 31 years on February the 23rd of 2021. And that's what I mean by having to update it for this presentation. And I always give credit to where it's due. These 12 spiritual principles that I'm sharing from my experience, strength, and hope are modeled after the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. Now, so that was then, and this is now. And so what I want to do is go to the next slide and also share with you that. And people will say, Edwina, well, who are you? I see my presentation so people can know who I am and also know that I am qualified and have been prepared to sit before you. And so my presentation of outlining who I am is presented to you now. Edwina Clinton Hall, that was the name I was born with. I've been married 3 times. As I say, as of February the 23rd of 2021, I have 31 years free from chemical dependency, mental illness, cancer, domestic violence, suicide attempts, rape, etc. I'm also presently obtaining my doctorate degree in biblical studies from New Calvary School of Ministry. I'm a proud member of Canaan Baptist Church, where my pastor, Dr. Christopher Allen Bullock, resides. I am, by the grace of God, a speaker, presenter, facilitator, recovery coach, and even an actress and a model, thanks to these 12 spiritual principles. I've been hosting my own talk show called Choosing a New Way of Life for the past 27 years. I am the proud mother of Dr. Dwight Kenneth Dockery and my daughter, Kenesha Dockery, who is a CEO of A Woman's Touch. I'm the proud grandmother of 8 living grandchildren. One transitioned a few years ago, and I was able to take care of 7 family members on hospice, 3 at a time, as a result of these 12 steps being applied in all my affairs. This is my book that I shared with you in terms of as it was written. And if you can see the background, there's an eye there. I'm underneath that parked car. And most people say, well, how did you get underneath that parked car? Well, the picture was recreated to demonstrate where I was on February the 22nd of 1990. I put myself underneath that parked car to keep my stepson from hurting me. He was my age, and him and I was getting high together, doing all kinds of sexual activities because we were both in our addiction. And me putting myself underneath that parked car helped me to save my life. And that's when I called out to a God that I didn't know to take me out this life or show me a better way. And as you can see, it says a 4-year journal entries of a recovering person from drugs, alcohol, mental illness, crime, prostitution, murder. Yes, I, as a prostitute, I had an abortion and I considered that murder. And I was also homeless. So this is my book as it was written. And as you can see, the word written is spelled wrong because when people suffer from addiction and mental illness, we forget how to spell. But that wasn't the point. The point was to get what was inside out, even if we had to do X and O. So as it was written, when I wrote it, the first 4 years in my recovery, run-on sentences, misspelled words, it didn't matter. But I was keeping a daily journal of my transition from an active addiction into recovery that talked about my fears, my hopes, my dreams, my behaviors. When I say everything is in there, everything is in there. And so that's why I encourage you to start keeping a journal. I also want to share with you that this is my presentation. This is me, again, underneath that parked car. And the pictures that you see in the white is when I was in high school. I graduated with honors. I was the vice president. I was a co-captain of the cheerleader team. I was into physical education, played on the basketball team. In the middle, in the yellow, is when I experienced my 14 years of addiction. Yes. And the last one in the black is when I graduated in 1997 with my master's degree in human services. So this is the back cover of my book. All right. So let me continue to go on and sharing with you what this PowerPoint presentation is about. And when I graduated with my master's degree from Lincoln University in 1997, my thesis was composing a training manual for the city of Wilmington, Delaware, in order to train co-workers, fellow employees to become peer specialists so that we can help each other who are suffering from mental illness and substance abuse not lose their jobs, but to get into treatment. And this is my thesis that I wrote in order to do that. So as you can see, my experience, strength, and hope is following my education process and trying to help others. The next slide is I share with you that as a result of being in recovery, there was a contest, not a contest, but there was an invitation for people in the community to submit a 250-word essay, something that the community could benefit from. And I said, well, you know, I kept the journal. I graduated from Lincoln with my master's degree in human services, so I can continue the process of sharing my experience, my strength, and my hope as a result of my addiction and being blessed to be in recovery. And so this was the first article that I wrote for the News Journal back in, I believe it was June or July of 1997. And I was selected as a result of this article and placed on the Community Advisory Board. At that time, I was working for the Wilmington Police Department, under the direction of Dr. Chief Samuel Pratchett. And again, I'm writing about addiction and recovery, right? And so the next slide of my PowerPoint would have been my next article that talks about with help, life goals are attainable. And in this article, I talked about the benefit of utilizing the rehabilitation programs that were available, the detoxification, the 12-step support groups, and how when we ask for help, it doesn't matter if we ask. The point is that we have to utilize it. And with that help, we can obtain our goals. So with help, life goals are attainable. And that article was written a few months later during that year. To continue my PowerPoint presentation, this is another article that I wrote. Ending addiction requires real desire. They say in our 12-step program that the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, right? A desire to stop drinking. And so when I wrote this article and outlined that we in the 12-step program know that we need help, but the change and the difference is going to make for those who recognize that they want the help. And when you want something, it's a different mindset than needing it. So again, this was another article that I presented just to demonstrate my preparation, my qualifications, as well as my credibility, sharing my own experience, strength, hope, and wisdom. I go on to the next PowerPoint, which says that as a result of my addiction, I am no longer homeless, physically, mentally, or spiritually. This article was written in the F.R.E.E newspaper, Resources for Human Development out of Philadelphia. And as a result of that article, I shared my experience, my strength, and hope in the tri-state area and sharing with people who are suffering from co-occurring disorders that we no longer have to be homeless, and in the physical state, in the mental state, and also in the spiritual state. Through the 12-step program, we can find where we belong. And with that information, I shared that too. So let me continue to go on to the next slide. All right, this is very interesting, right? So who would have ever known that as a former prostitute, that the Newcastle County Police Department, while working for the Wilmington Police Department and having my experience, strength, and hope shared with the whole state of Delaware, that I was recruited to help with this prostitution thing. And though they had to lock up the prostitutes, they also wanted to give the prostitutes hope. And I was recruited to be that counselor, to be that liaison from them getting locked up to them getting the help that I need. See, I am transparent. I am transparent. I am transparent. So whatever experience, strength, and hope that I can give to save one life, my past can help those people as well as remind me how grateful I am. So this was another part of my PowerPoint presentation. Let me continue. This is me and This is me and, oh my God, what is his name? Out of New Jersey. He worked for the Salvation Army, and he also, through Dr. Brunson, yes, Cornell Brunson. He introduced me to the Salvation Army in Bridgeton, New Jersey. And every Wednesday I would go and share my experience, my strength, and my hope. As a matter of fact, He's going to kill me because I can't remember his name right off the bat. But he was the first one to call me minister. I said, I don't know about no minister. I was called to give my testimony, not to preach. But yes, so in Bridgeton, New Jersey, again, showing my credibility and showing that I've been prepared to share my experience, my strength, and my hope. My next presentation included this was a article that was, again, in the news journal. By the grace of God, after leaving the Wilmington Police Department, I was hired as the program manager and then executive director for the enterprise community. And I created a support group for those who have lost loved ones to violence. And guess what? I applied these 12 recovery principles to that support group and helping others who have lost loved ones to violence apply these same spiritual principles in order to address and deal and realize that they can regain their power, their strength, by utilizing these 12 spiritual principles. And as you can see, I was unflinchingly honest then, and I'm still honest now, which has been one of my assets of being totally transparent and totally honest. I have no secrets. But again, just to demonstrate my being able to share my experience, my strength, and my hope. And so again, me with the support group, we are using the 12 recovery principles to promote healing after violence. And again, to substantiate how I can utilize my experience, my strength, and my hope regarding the 12 steps. So with all the presentation and the qualifications of who I am and why I feel blessed and prepared to sit before you, my opening PowerPoint and introduction of the 12-step program started with this: to thy own self be true. To thy own self be true. The question should not be, what's wrong with me, you? The question should be, what happened to me, you? And I credit that to Dr. Alvin Turner of Wilmington, Delaware, when I hosted my TV show and had him as my guest. And even though he talked about the Western culture and trying to apply that Western culture to the African American culture, that it did not work. But if we all acknowledge that something happened to us, then we can begin to get better instead of wondering what's wrong with me or what's wrong with you. So this was the beginning of that PowerPoint presentation and presenting the 12 steps. Okay. Let's go to my next one. All right. That's me. That's me when I was, I believe, 3 or 4 years old. And I used that picture because it represents a child that was affected, impacted, conditioned by some unhealthy behaviors and some good times, but some unhealthy behaviors. This is when we talk about going back in our 4th step, our earliest recollection, where those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors were first formulated, which is why I have to show this picture. And as a result of now being 65 years of age, and in these 30 plus years of being in recovery, I was able to go back and rescue that little girl. I was able to go back and embrace her. I was able to go back and ask for her forgiveness. And so that's why these 12 spiritual principles are so important, because all of us need to find and go and rescue that child within who we left behind, and where those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors, decisions, and choices contributed to that abandonment issue that participated in leaving that little person behind. All right. And so the next slide, it says here, I like to always give credit to where credit is due. Most of you know that throughout my presentations since March of 2020, that I use two resources. And because of plagiarism and people doing this and doing that, I'm giving credit to Dr. Scott T. Allison article in Psychology Today, where he used the Al-Anon approach for dealing with how the wisdom of 12-step programs can help get us through April. That was the caption. And in that, he talks about 7 points that can help us from an Al-Anon perspective, utilizing the same 12 recovery principles, right? Point number 1 was letting go of control. Point number 2 was patience. Point number 3 was keeping the focus on oneself. Point number 4 was trust. Point number 5 was living in the present. Point number 6 was social connection. Point number 7 was service to others. And so I often list and mention these resources so that you don't have to believe me. You can go back to the actual article. You can extract it from the internet. You can go to the library, read it for yourself. Okay. And the other one I use is Jason Waller. Now, I didn't know he was an actor. I was on the internet trying to get some outlines, some descriptions of how people approach the 12 steps and how they break them down. And when I came across Jason Wallace, I said, this is it. Because this man and his family, he uses a podcast. He has an awesome website, and his life and his journey and recovery is an open book. But I love the way that he outlines the 12 steps and break them down so simplicitly so that a child can understand them. And the main thing, he also uses other resources coupled with his experience, strength, and hope and wisdom, and demonstrates how he utilizes that information to recover one day at a time. But he also poses some questions for us to ask ourselves, to marinate, to think about, to analyze, to evaluate, to help us get more in touch with the spiritual angle of that spiritual steps, and all of them in a holistic approach. So the resources that are mentioned, used in my presentations are to Dr. Scott T. Allison and Jason Waller. So the next presentation that I go to in my PowerPoint, and we talked about this already, and we said, and this is how I did it back in February of 2020, we admitted we were powerless over, and I had a blank line that our lives had become unmanageable. And the reason why I had a blank line, not knowing I was going to put COVID-19 in it, but I could put gambling in it. I could put workaholics in it. So the point is, whatever we recognize that is causing our lives chaos, unmanageability, and we have to admit we are powerless over, then we put that in that particular blank. And that's why they say that we can utilize all these principles in all our affairs, because each and every one of us have a number of things that we are powerless over that are causing our lives unmanageable. And some of the questions that we pose, as well as Jason Waller, are, what are you powerless over? And we examine that, right? And question number 2, how and in what ways have your life become unmanageable as a result of your powerlessness to that? And question number 3, do you think you can ever regain power? So we are applying these questions to COVID-19. All right. And so you need to go back to my other presentations to get that information. All right. The next slide on my PowerPoint was recovery principle number 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And sanity only means soundness of mind. And so the questions that are posed, similar to those that are posed by Jason Waller, is can you name some examples of a power or powers greater than you? Question number 2, can you describe the characteristics of that power or powers? Number 3, what characteristics would you want that power or powers to possess and demonstrate? Question number 4, can you provide examples of how that power or powers could restore you to soundness of mind, restore you to sanity regarding COVID-19? Okay, and I went on to recovery principle number 3, where we talked about made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. As we understand him, if you want to use the word creator, fine. And questions posed that are similar in nature to Jason Waller. How many decisions do you make a day? What types of decisions do you make? 2, can you provide examples of how you make a decision to turn your will and your life over to? 3, can you explain the words over to the care of? Why our will and our lives? Question 4, how important is making that decision to you, and how often should you practice making that decision and why? So these are just some of the questions that we pose to get you to see the importance of that step and the spiritual angle that we are coming from. And what we started a few days ago was recovery principle number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Here we ask you, what does a moral inventory mean to you? And if you're like me, don't know the meaning of words sometimes, I told you, that crack and alcohol burned some of my brain cells. And guess what? If you don't know, you don't know. So I help people like people help me. Moral means concerned with the principles of right, wrong behavior and the goodness and badness of human character. All right. So when we do that moral inventory, we are talking about the right and wrong within our character and how it is demonstrated in our behavior and the goodness and badness that is within us. There's some good and bad people, and there's some bad and good people, as somebody so said, but there's not a perfect human being on this earth. Okay. So let's go to my next slide. And we talked about this yesterday, and that picture of that little girl, going back to our earliest recollection of those memories so that we can find out where those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors were formulated by whom and in what condition. And we also talked about a balance sheet, acknowledging our liabilities as well as our assets. But go back to whatever time in your life you specifically adopted and started practicing and was adamant about your attitudes, ideas, and your behaviors. And that would include the scene, who was involved, and making sure that you express some of your challenges and some of your fond memories. All right. So let's go to the next one, because we already went over these. Yesterday, I also talked and gave you an example of applying my personal resentment that Jason Waller started his 4-step breakdown with, that the Alcoholics Anonymous big book used resentments as the first as well, because it's resentments that we need to address first and foremost. And so I gave you an example of how I resented my mother and why I resented my mother, the feelings that it created as a result of resenting my mother, what it affected in my life. It affected my self-esteem, and then the part I played in having this resentment against my mother. And then I shared with you how I can apply the resentment against COVID-19. I'm mad that this virus was created and it's creating more stuff, huh? Why? Because it creates so much uncertainty. And what are the feelings? The feelings are mixed. How's it affected me, my entire existence? And the part that I played in it, I'm just an innocent victim. But I also want to say, as a result of contracting COVID-19, I played a part in it because I did not want to practice social distancing. I wanted to pick and choose when I wanted to wash my hands. I wanted to pick and choose when I was going to wear a mask, and I wanted to go where I wanted to go. I wanted to go and have dinner with my family, birthday parties. And guess what? I contributed to contracting COVID-19. And so the questions that are posed by Jason Waller about resentments and now being applied to COVID-19. So let me ask you before we end this hour session, and we will go in more deeply tomorrow if God chooses to wake us up. How did your behavior contribute to your resentment against COVID-19? How have your resentments affected your life, your relationship with others, and self regarding COVID-19? Who and what do you fear and why? And how do you respond destructively and negatively to your fears of COVID-19? Who or what do you feel ashamed of or guilty about regarding COVID-19? What feelings do you have the most trouble allowing yourself to feel? And how do you act out? And so, as a result, and presenting that to you, I wanted to share with you what that PowerPoint presentation would have been had I been in an actual audience. And if it's God's will that that's going to happen, I definitely will be wearing a mask, right? And as a matter of fact, I'll be wearing two masks, because now they saying wear two masks instead of one. Okay. But I just wanted to share with you that as a result of being delivered from underneath that parked car 30 plus years ago, and like I said, if it's God's will that I live to February the 23rd of 2021, we will be celebrating 31 years in recovery, but one day at a time. That's why it's a happy new day for people in recovery. And that's why I have to apply that same spirit and that same analogy to COVID-19. It's a happy new day. Because I get to practice not only the 12 spiritual principles, but I also get to practice those simple suggestions to save my life, to save the lives of my loved ones, to save the lives of my culture, my community, my city, my state, my country. And if we all do this simultaneously, we can have an impact on this COVID-19. And so, as a result of me sharing with you just a little more about how this whole thing started, and how I am sitting before you instead of sitting in front of you, if you know what I mean, in the physical, but sitting in front of you, giving you the same information that my God prepared me and started me on February the 23rd of 2020. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing? I just want to close by saying I am humbled after being humiliated. I am grateful after being ungrateful. I am taking things, I am no longer taking things for granted, particularly this COVID-19 or anything else, because I can breathe today. I can smell, I can taste, I can feel, I hear you, but I am listening because We don't know when this COVID-19 is going to end, how it's going to end, how many more lives we're going to lose and whatnot. But guess what? If you can just help save one life, even if it's our own and the lives of other people, then we are being in the prevention mode of COVID-19, or the intervention mode of COVID-19, or the restoration mode of COVID-19. We also can be proactive when it comes to COVID-19, reactive when it comes to COVID-19, or inactive when it comes to COVID-19. But the main point is to be responsible and do the next right thing regarding COVID-19. So if it's God's will that we are rejoined tomorrow, then I want to say be safe. I want to make sure that you do what we all are instructed to do, and that is to wear a mask, practice social distancing, stay out of public places. Don't put your life or other people's lives in jeopardy. If we do this all together, simultaneously, I can hope, right? Free from recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. Until we meet again, be safe. Okay, so let me do this. And